Hello, everybody. It's a wet and windy day out. So you might hear the wind blowing through the windows, but I shall persevere. I wanted to talk today about sin and, if possible, get into shame. And the reason I came to sin was because I was talking before about self-love. I think it was in the previous show, and also about God in another show. And I thought, well, I've been talking a lot about the good side of it all. We need to look at and saying about how we need to observe ourselves and look at how we muck up, how we make mistakes, and how do we deal with all that? How do we work out how to get on with getting over our sins and forgive ourselves and move on with ourselves so that we can, you know, develop ourselves. We can't have these things holding us back. So I'm just going to do a quick start with a Views from the Real World book, How to Escape from this General Law of Slavery. We are weak, yet the possibility exists of our getting free of this law if we try slowly, gradually, but steadily. From the objective point of view, this means, of course, to go against the law, against nature. In other words, to commit sin. But we can do so because a law of a different order exists as well. We have been given another law by God. And here he's talking about the being asleep. We don't want to be asleep, but most people are, and that's the natural law that everybody's going around in and not seeing what's really going on, just being the automaton, the robot that Gurdjieff talks about that we all are, or just mechanical ways of being. But in a way, he's saying, create that sin and break out of that, be the naughty person and instead become real I, real you, by breaking out of the rat race, as the modern word term is, and develop yourself. So it's a sin. All that helps his awakening is good for him. All that prevents it is evil. The only real sin for such a man comes to be whatever prevents him from awakening. So if you know of this stuff and you've been asking yourself all these questions and trying to work on yourself and to wake up, and then you go back to sleep again, well, that's a sin. That's, you've lost that opportunity to work on yourself. It might come to you again later in life. Maybe we get a few chances. I don't know. I often get the feeling that once you start questioning these things, it's really hard to go back to being asleep. But I've met people that have. But these are people that one has tried to speak to about this kind of thing because they've suddenly shown a little bit of interest, but you can see the fear glaze over into their eyes, and it doesn't make them, they want to stay in their nice, secure, comfy rat race world, which isn't comfy to them. They know that it's hard, it's difficult, but it's something they know. I think the saying is, better the devil you know. Well, we're trying to get to know a different devil by escaping all that kind of thing and instead going forth. So to not commit a sin is to actually try and wake up. So this is from In Search of the Miraculous, Ouspensky. A sin is something which is not necessary. Sins are what keep a man on one spot if he has decided to move and he is able to move. Sin exists only for people who are on the way or approaching the way. Then sin is what stops a man, helps him to deceive himself and to think that he is working when he is simply asleep. Sin is what puts a man to sleep when he has already decided to awaken. And what puts a man to sleep? Again, everything that is unnecessary, everything that is not indispensable. And that's very true too. I've met people on the path that say they're working on themselves and waking up, but they seem to be the most asleep people there that I've ever met. Especially with 2020, that was a bit of a wake-up call for me. I met many people in different traditions, not just the Gurdjieff one, that I thought were awake people and turned out to be quite asleep. And I wonder sometimes if people just do this kind of work because they perhaps not properly fitted in with society, so they're a little bit alternative, so they look for that alternative path and think they're being, somebody else, a bit of an ego trip for them, that they're doing something different to everybody else. But when it comes down to it, they don't really understand what they're doing at all. And then they don't continue with their path properly because they're finding ways to stop themselves, but perhaps even conning themselves that they're doing the right thing. As you're saying, sin exists only for people who are on the way or approaching the way. And if they don't carry on that way, that's the sin. Sin is what stops the man, helps him to deceive himself and to think that he is working when he is simply asleep. And that is what I mainly met last year. People I'd known for a long time who have now realised, think they are working, but are simply asleep. And it's awful of me to say these things, very bad karma on me, but I'm just saying this so that you can be aware of people like that. You're going to meet people on all the traditional paths that seem to be doing the path, and then they'll do something and you'll be like, that's not quite right. Maybe that's a bit of a sleepy thing to do. Just to be aware, watch out for these kinds of people, good luck. But anyway, carrying on. This is from Not. The penitent's first duty on going to purgatory is cheerfulness. Having seen his sin and acknowledged it, he must put it out of his mind and not wallow in self-pity and self-reproach, which are forms of egotism. And that's another thing I find with people that do start off on this path recently, like the ones that have had to wake up really quickly because of 2020. They're wallowing too much in what has happened to them in the past, thinking that they can't go forward, they're not worthy. Well, you are worthy because you've started looking at this path, you've started working on yourself. So you have the right to go forward. Feeling sorry for yourself, as he's saying here, is wallowing in self-pity, is feeding the ego. And we don't want to feed the ego, not in that kind of way anyway. We want to be working on ourselves so that we're feeling more positive in ourselves. The past has happened, and the only way we can change it is by our own thinking about it and feeling about it and changing how we remember that or react to it. I'm not saying you changed what actually happened, but you changed how you perceived what was happening. If you've done something that you regret, and you've got to figure out why you regret it, take it on board and then let it go. You can't sit there wallowing on it and saying, poor me. You've got to move onwards. It's spiritual progress forwards. And many people let this kind of thing stop them going forward because they don't think they're worthy. Well, we're all worthy, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. But we still have to put the effort in to work on ourselves. And there will be moments when we get stuck. Many of you will know about Gurdjieff's octave. I'm not going to go fully into it now, but there is an octave to everything we do in life. Everything that happens has an octave, and that's what he calls shocks in it, 2 stops, where things interrupt it or bring it to a halt, and you either something else will come in and make it continue, or you have to put the effort in to make it continue, or it will just stop and you will go off on a different path. I'll perhaps try and get Josh to do a talk with me on octaves, because that's quite a big, all of it's a big subject, but So what comes with sin? Shame. And that's what I was trying to get at, that we let the shame stop us going forward, or make us feel sorry for ourselves, or let it feed our ego a little bit. And we need to look at our shame. This is from All and Everything. Instinctive shame, the being impulse that maintains morals and objective morality. The being impulse that maintains morals and objective morality. So we need to use instinctive shame to work on ourselves, to look at ourselves, kind of what I was just saying. And he carries on in All and Everything. Although organic self-shame, proper to the free brain beings, has gradually and entirely disappeared from their presences, nevertheless, there has arisen in its place this pseudo-being impulse which arises in their presences only when they do something which, under their abnormally established conditions of ordinary being existence, is not acceptable to be done before others. So we have, over the centuries and the millennia that humanity's progressed, as it Gurdjieff says, we are de-evolving, and I think we might be de-evolving. We need to evolve. So he's talking about organic shame. But over our progression of humanity, various things have been made aware of that we mustn't do anymore. We need to be in this last century, definitely politically correct, which may have gone too far, don't know. But it's an awareness of what is organic shame, you know, and you know what you feel shameful about if you do things. So we need to try and stop doing things that we feel shameful about, but at the same time, things do happen, accidents happen, you know, and instead of pondering on it in a bad way of sitting there thinking, oh my God, I wish I hadn't done that. We understand why we've done it and move on. And people like to throw that at each other as well. They like to remind people of their mistakes and their errors, which is just them trying to make themselves look better for all their own sins and shame. You know, it's better to put somebody else down than keep being reminded of your own mistakes and shame and sin. You know, we all like to point the finger. We shouldn't be pointing the finger. It's rude to point a finger at people, but it's if somebody needs to be shown where they've gone wrong, that's different. But it's not nice to do it just for, you know, laughs. Being shame comes from objective conscience, says Not, a realization that one has failed to attain what one should be. So the being shame is kind of carrying on from what we was talking about with the sin just now. If you're not continuing working, there will always be that niggling thought in the back of your mind saying, shame on you for not continuing on your path and developing yourself. You could try and do it. You've got the chance, the opportunity, you know, so them little niggles are there, part of your conscience maybe, trying to tell you to help yourself on your path. So again from Not, this is a question to Oraj. Organic shame and the loss of it with special reference to women. Oraj replies, I've heard Gurdjieff refer equally to its loss in men. In one chapter, he acquits women in America of the state into which they have fallen. But this decline started in men, and the women only made manifest the degree to which organic shame is lost in men. Now, that's quite a deep subject, actually. I shouldn't have done that quote. But it's quite explained in Beelzebub's Tales about shame in men and shame in women and how we have been degrading ourselves over the last century, maybe. There's not the... I'm not saying we need to be prim and proper and go back to Victorian times and nobody sees each other's ankles anymore, but we all know that the state of humanity has kind of got a bit degraded in how we treat each other. You know, porn is rife on the internet, and porn's not the greatest thing. It's not the right way of using sex. It's a titillation. So it's a misunderstanding of using your sexual energy and a misunderstanding of how to treat men and women, maybe. But these are for people that are asleep, people that are awake. Don't do that kind of thing. Now I sound all prim and proper and a prude. But yeah, perhaps go and check out Beelzebub's Tales for that a bit deeper. And carrying on with Not, organic shame is not of an organ, but of the organism, which regards abnormality with fear. Only a normal organism feels this. The method provides a means of discovering and having a realization of one's abnormality. This inspires a wish to change, which is organic shame, the aspiration of lower vibrations to share the experience of higher vibrations. So organic shame is the being suddenly awake and aware of that things aren't quite what you want them to be, but not everybody else around you is changing. Everybody else is still carrying on in their, you know, normal day-to-day life of, you know, the Joe Bloggs world. Is that the normal day-to-day life, or is that an asleep way of living? And when you start waking up and you try and tell other people about this, you have to be careful who you speak to about it, because many people will ridicule you because they feel safe and secure in their own lives. They don't want to wake up. They like how they live their lives, which is fine. Let them do it. You know, maybe they get a chance at it next time. So the organic shame that we're feeling for wanting to wake up, we need to use to help develop our own energy so that we carry on that way and don't let them beat us You know, you've got to feel what's right in your conscience, in your understanding of what you're trying to be. Shame and sin are a big subject, as are all of these little talks that I've been doing. They're all big subjects. It's difficult to express in just a few words. And I know many people are out there on their own trying to make sense of it all. And I, again, like I've said in other shows, I can only offer you guidance to other places to go and look, because I'm not a full expert, but there is help out there for people. So don't wallow in your shame, don't wallow in your sin, but be a sinful person and get off the rat race and go and wake up